This evening I'm going to be looking at Psalm 1. And Psalm 1 is the first psalm for a reason. It's not a coincidence that it's there. It really is an introduction into the Psalter. And much like Genesis 1 is an introduction into the book of Genesis, but also the rest of the Bible. I know that the way that, with the science and the evolution stuff, we kind of end up missing the point of Genesis 1. What Genesis 1 really is, at its heart, is it is a thesis statement and a purpose statement for the Bible, which is God made the world for his people and commissioned them to go fill it. And that's it. I mean, the rest of the Bible is a story of people, God's people, having the land, losing the land, filling the land, to the point, really, I mean, you could even say that the Great Commission in Matthew is Jesus saying to God's people, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. And so really what Genesis 1 is it's kind of the structure that gives that the rest of the story sits inside of. And that's really the way that Psalm 1 is. Psalm 1 is the structure that the rest of the Psalter will sit in. And it's actually kind of part 1 of an introduction, because I think Psalm 2 is as well. And so part 1 of the introduction to the Psalter is the way the world is that God created. So God created the world, and just like in Genesis 1, he separates light from dark, he separates land and sea. In Psalm 1, God separates the righteous and the wicked, and he delineates them and welcomes us, his children, into that world that he created. I mean, think about it. Like Psalm 1 tells us that the righteous looks like this, the wicked looks like that, and we just kind of have to trust God to stay with the righteous. And I mean, if Adam and Eve had Psalm 1 and believed it, however that works, if they would have known when the talking snake was there, when the fruit looked so good, if they could have just remembered the blessings that belong to the righteous and the curses and the condemnation that belong to the wicked, then they might not have sinned. It's the world that God made. And so for us, and this is, in all of these, I'm actually pushing towards a spiritual reading. I'm not here and doing this to teach the Psalms. I'm here for us to build our spirituality around the Psalms. And so the way that this affects us spiritually is that it is really, Psalm 1 is an invitation into the world that God created. I mean, God created, the right to be right and the wrong to, the wrong is wrong. Do we live in that world or not? And do we conform to that world? It becomes, in the Psalter, it becomes really easy to envy the wicked, or to trust the wicked, or to be angry because the wicked are winning. And that really kind of gets into Psalm 2. But Psalm 1 begins the drumbeat of God made the world. God will reward the righteous, and God will destroy the wicked. And so it really is, an invitation to childlike faith. I'm not left. I think as kind of adult faith, I'm left wrestling with what's righteous and what's, wicked, and who am I going to follow and what am I going to trust. But childlike faith, which is what the Psalms are pushing us towards constantly, all 150, I believe that with all my heart. Childlike faith looks to my Father and says, Father, what do you think about this? Father, how did you create the world? I'm just going to live like that. And it's totally simplistic. I get that. It's not that easy. And yet that's the world that God is welcoming us into with this introductory psalm. And now it's a blessing. And so it kind of, it's a good moment to talk about the fact that not all psalms pray as easily as other psalms. I mean, my goal with the Psalms and these evening Psalms, but also in my life, is to pray the Psalms. I speak the words of the Psalms to God. That's how I pray. That really is all my prayers, is the Psalms. And I just work my way through them, and I come back to the beginning and work my way through them again over and over. But this one is a blessing. And so it's kind of important to realize not all psalms and not even all prayers say, God, what about this? God, handle that. This is prayer doesn't have to be direct speech. It can be accepting a posture. And so this psalm, as I read it, as you meditate on it with me, I want you to consider the posture that this psalm is putting us in. It's the posture of a child. It's a posture of faith and belief that the right are right and the wrong are wrong. Because it doesn't always look that way, does it? So we, God's children, as I read this, will just accept the posture. And the posture that this psalm teaches is the posture of faith. And so with all of these evening psalms, I begin really with my own meditation. I begin with Psalm 131 because I think it's kind of the crown jewel of childlike faith, and it expresses childlike faith. And so I use it to kind of prepare my heart to have childlike faith and to enter this world that my Father has created for me to live in. O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not concern myself with things that are too great or too marvelous for me. But I have calmed and I have quieted my soul. Like a weaned child with its mother is my soul within me. What a wonderful expression of, I do not concern myself with things too great or too marvelous for me. Psalm 1 is the expression of that. Psalm 1 is the act of trust that God's figured out that stuff, and I'm just going to trust Him. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. Amen.